Hi everyone, this is Branson Man. You can find me at bransonman.com. You can also ask me a question. Send me an email, ask@bransonman.com. Since I posted my last video, I've been getting lots of email questions from all over the world. From MBA students in India, from Singapore, from America. And the question of Rev Par has come up. So I thought I'd take just a few minutes to do a quick video on this. Rev Par stands for Revenue Per Available Room. So someone sent me a scenario they were trying to figure out, and I think it might have been a student trying to get me to do their homework, but it works as a great example either way. So I thought we would go through that real quick, and then if you have any questions, follow-up questions, you can just send those to me, and I'll be happy to help you understand. If you talk to industry experts, general managers, revenue managers, professors in universities, in regards to hospitality, what is in hotels, what's the most important metric? One measuring stick, what would they choose? Nearly 100%, if not 100%, would choose RevPAR. I'll tell you why in just a minute. But I want to use a word of caution. I'm actually not a big fan of RevPAR. The reason is I think often people use it as a tool to forecast, which I think is a bad idea. I use it, and it is very useful when I am looking back. So if I get to the end of a year or the end of a month, and I want to judge how this month did this year versus last year, RevPAR is a great single metric, and it gives you a really good bird's eye view. The problem with that is there can be lots of specifics that are very important and that are skewing the details. If you use RevPAR to set rates for the future, I have found that there are instances where if I were being judged on RevPAR, I could actually make RevPAR go up by setting the rate a certain way, even though it would mean less profit, which really is most important, less profit for the hotel. I've also been able to show where I can make more profit for the hotel by setting the rates a certain way, but RevPAR will go down and it will look bad. So it does have its flaws. The way you find RevPAR is by multiplying the average daily rate, ADR, times the occupancy. So you've got two different things happening here, and so whenever you graph them, there's some sort of gray zone in there somewhere where if the metrics are just right, it can skew the information. So use it to look back to see how you did, and then look at all of the other statistics like revenue and the number of rooms that you had to clean. Look at that, because that will give you even more information about profit. But real quick, RevPAR, if it's the average daily rate times the occupancy, seems pretty simple. So check this out. Average daily rate. You take all of your rooms that were sold, you take the rate that they were sold to the customer for, and then you average that out. And it will give you 155. In this example. So this hotel has 185 rooms. Only 80% of those were occupied on this given day or this given month. It's insignificant, the amount of time. This is the information we have. That means likely half of the rooms were more expensive than 155, half were less expensive. Someone was asking me, I don't understand how you can have multiple different prices for a room on the same day. How can it be the average daily rate? Half of them could have been 165, half of them could have been 145. Let's say the rate on your website, and if they call and on ExpediaBooking.com, is 165. So half of the hotel was sold to customers for 165. Then there's a group that came in and they bought so many rooms, they bought 50% of the rooms that were sold, and they bought them for 145. 165 and 145. You average those out, it's 155. So you can have multiple different rates and you have multiple different room types. So that's why the average daily rate's important, because it gives you a good bird's eye view of what the room sold for. So in this example, I'm going to go ahead and find my calculator here real quick. A lot of people don't know how to do percentages as decimals. This is very valuable, very important. I learned this in a business math class, and it was probably the most practical class that I ever took. First of all, let's figure out how many rooms were occupied. So if the hotel has 185 rooms, but only 80% of those were occupied, how do we do that on the calculator? Let's do this, 185 rooms. If it were 100% full, how many rooms would be sold? Well, it'd be 185. So on a calculator, you would say 185 times 100%. 100% written as a decimal is 1. So if it were 50% full, what's half of 1? It's 0.5. So watch this. Let's clear 185 times 50%. So this starts the numbers, and then you do the 50 afterwards, the 5 and the 0. 100% is 1.00. Half of 185 is 92.5, so it couldn't be exactly 50%. It would have to be a little bit different. Well, we know that there's 185 rooms, and we know that it was 80%, 0.8 occupied. That tells us there are 148 rooms. That might not be necessary information, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in here just because it's good practice. Okay, so we have 148 rooms. To get Rev Par, I need to go ahead and put this in here that way, you know. Rev Par is the average daily rate times occupancy. So what happens is, for Rev Par, they take the revenue that was brought in and they divide it amongst all of the rooms. Revenue per available room. All 185 we're assuming were available. There wasn't a leak or getting carpet replaced in any of them. They were all available. So the amount of money that you were able to get for each room brought in all of this revenue, and they take and they divide it by the total number of rooms, and it gives you a really big picture about how accurately you got occupancy and how much money you were able to get. For instance, let's say in theory you could sell one room for $1 million or 1 million rooms for $1, and then there's everywhere in between. Rev Par will give you a big bird's eye view of how accurately you price that to get the most occupancy and also the most money. I showed you in my other videos, sometimes you can make more profit by selling fewer rooms. It depends on how high a rate you can get, and that's what Rev Par helps you out with. All right, let's get moving. ADR. The average daily rate was $155. The hotel was 80% occupied. We see that the Rev Par was $124. So you see how it brings that down. So that means if you took $124 in cash and you put it at the door of every single room, when you all the rooms, whether they were full or empty, all 185 rooms, then that will tell us what the revenue that was brought in that day. So you got $124 for the rooms that were occupied, and you got $124 for the rooms that weren't. So we don't need to, but let's go ahead and figure out the revenue. How much money was brought in? We know the average daily rate was $155, so we can assume that every room sold for that, even though some were more and some were less. How many rooms did we sell? We sold 148. $148 rooms were sold. 185 in the hotel, 80% were occupied, 148, and they sold on average for $155, $22,940. $22,940. Okay, so what will happen is you get to the end of a month and you run metrics like this. I've been doing this for the first part of the year till the end of July. July is a busy month for us here locally, and I'm sure it is for most people, at least in America, the way our seasons and schooling runs. So I'm doing a year-to-date analysis from January 1st to the end of July for 2016 versus 2017. And because it's such a big amount of data for each of the hotels I work for, I am looking at Rev Par. It's just like a thermometer, just to check and see how everything is doing. So if my Rev Par this year is 124, year-to-date for the first 7 months of the year, and last year it was 121, we could see that maybe that's an increase of maybe about, 2%? And so I can say, okay, well, that's healthy and it's moving in the right direction. You can also compare it to other reports like the Smith Travel Report, the STAR Report, which is the industry standard. If the STAR Report tells me that the rest of my city has only gone up 1% for RevPAR year to date, but I've gone up 2.5%, well, then I know that I'm pacing really well and I'm getting good occupancy and a good rate for each of my rooms. That is RevPAR, the most important metric in hotel revenue management. It's the average daily rate times the occupancy. And I personally like it for looking back to see how well I performed rather than looking forward to set rates. If you have any other questions, hit me up. ask@bransonman.com. And subscribe here on YouTube. And when I release a new video, then you'll get notification of that so you can check it out. All right, thanks for listening.